In 1981, Reed Nicholson began selling tires out of an old barn in Mineral Bluff. Little did he know that he had just laid the groundwork for the most trusted names in automotive services in the Blue Ridge area. In 1997, Nicholson Tire Center became what it is today, holding the same values of faith, family, and great customer service. 2 locations to serve you, and the Blue Ridge location is currently expanding to offer fast service and the largest U-Haul provider in Georgia. Nicholson Tire Center, Blue Ridge, and Mineral Bluff.
Ritz Furniture specializes in quality furniture for affordable prices. Our extensive inventory highlights top brands and provides everything you could ever want. You can count on us for kitchen, dining, bedroom, and living room furniture, no matter what the style is you have in mind. Stop in with your family and look at our amazing selection to find the perfect fit for your home. Contact us today to see how we can make a difference in your home.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Inside Smoky Mountain Conference. This is our last show of the year, our awards show. We'll be giving out a couple awards, the usual Player of the Year, Lineman of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, all that good stuff. We've got one extra award that we're starting here in 2024. But first, Brandon, think back and tell me, I'm going to put you on the spot here. What was your favorite moment from the 2024 season?
Oh man, there's so many different little moments. You know, whether it's an individual. I think one of my favorite moments had to be when I was watching the Murphy Hayesville game, and I saw Charlie Graves not just strip the ball, but then took off down the field and scored a touchdown. And truly, in that sense. When you can say a lot of times in a football game, well, defense was responsible for this because they made an interception or, they got a pick six, and that usually comes with a defensive back or somebody like that. But usually a lineman, they never get to score. It's very seldom that you get to see them doing the big starry plays. And that was definitely one of them. And maybe it sounds like, just being a little one-sided to Murphy Bulldogs. Well, I watched them the most, but inside that, I think the game-winning interception with Camden Brazil, who probably just like bull in a china shop, just goes back in his mind and in his way he works. It's like one of my old defensive coaches says, just hit him, shuck him, and find the ball. And that's definitely what he did. And that goes back to some elementary type things. And just when he picked off the quick pitch coming from Bryce going out to the side, is like, man alive, there's the ball game. And those are two, I think otherwise, just if you really had something that blew my hair back, I think probably one of the things that was just not so thrilling, but I think they were both struggling at the time. The Mecca or the game between Robbinsville and Swain County, not a good night. That was one that I thought, this is going to be the a meeting of some certain Titans on the field, and so going in one way or the other, I think that there were some things there that either impressed or it's like a little dismay if I can add that bandwidth to it.
Well, one of the best things I saw this season, and maybe it's recency bias, is Hayesville pulling off 37-35 upset over Union Academy. Trey Graves on the ground, the junior running back. They gave it to him 27 times, and he scored 5 touchdowns, had 283 yards. They won that game by 2 points. Union Academy scored 28 points in the first half. They hold them to just a touchdown in the second half, and they're able to pull away and win 37-35. good win on the road against Union Academy. They kind of, they completely dominated the second half, and if not for that outpouring of scoring in the second quarter from Union Academy, Hayesville would have dominated all the way through. But it was a fun season. There was a lot of things that you didn't expect. We saw a 7-2 football game. We saw a 2-0 football game against Swain and Andrews. Then we saw Hayesville avenge their 7-2 loss earlier in the season to Andrews when it mattered in the conference play. So a lot of fun things. It was a weird year in the Smoky Mountain Conference as a whole, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a good year. And we're going to take a look and talk about some of these guys, our players of the year. But you mentioned, Brandon, defensive play. This was one of our hardest awards to give out. We'll start with Defensive Player of the Year. One of our hardest awards to give out. We saw, a bunch of guys totaling over 100 tackles on the year, but the tackles for loss and just the way he was able to do it from so many different spots on the field. Brody Orton is our 2024 Defensive Player of the Year. Looking at his stats, he was second in the league, second in the Smoky Mountain Conference in tackles behind his running mate with Cadence Leatherwood. He had 128 tackles and 27 tackles for loss, which led the Smoky Mountain Conference, 2 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, an interception, 3 pass breakups, just a kid that was everywhere on the field and really was, a key piece to this Murphy defense that only allowed 16 points a game.
I think you're entirely right. I think that there's the and this is a good selection, not only just because of the tackles, but Brody was also he's got a good mind on the field, and he's got a good eye. And what I mean by that is check him out when he intercepts you, or he really comes back, and if he delivers a nice sack on you, it's you're gonna feel it for the next couple of days. You're gonna want to reach for the Epsom salts when you get home after he's hit you, because Brody Orton is just a beast. He's very cognizant of his surroundings, and he's a really good football player. I wouldn't be surprised if by now there are colleges really wanting to court him to come play football at their school. So I'm sure that looking for some bigger things for him. He's a junior, getting ready to come back for the Murphy Bulldogs, but he's a force to be reckoned with. Now, just a couple of others. I mean, just out of consideration, Jake, Titan Tees-Teskey comes into to mind on this. I liked, talking about Robbinsville, Quinn Jumper, Kaysen Buchanan, that whole front line for John Dominguez, a few others that played well on the line, and then Gabe Aguilar out at Andrews, the Wildcats. He's a big guy. Colton Rose, Antonio Hernandez, just to name a few. I think there are several that go into this, but Brody Orton, he brought home the bacon for the Murphy Bulldogs in that whole sense, and so good selection.
Yeah, I mean, it was between him and one other guy, and this other guy meant a lot to his team's defense, but he also meant a lot to his team's offense. So he is our 2024 Athlete of the Year. That's Bryce Adams, the senior quarterback and linebacker for the Robbinsville Black Knights. He did it all both ways, anchored the offense, anchored the defense, was, I think, 4th in the Smoky Mountain Conference in tackles. He had over 1,000. He led the Smoky Mountain Conference in passing yards, 1,313 passing yards, 579 rush yards, 19 total touchdowns. Like I said, he was 5th in the conference in tackles. He just, however Bryce Adams went, that's the way that Robbinsville went, and they had to rely on him a lot this year with some injuries and some things happening later in the season. And the one thing that was constant was number 6 out there on the football field. So he's been a fun kid to watch. He had to fill in at quarterback a little bit a couple years ago. But he's been a key piece of that defense for a long time. And Bryce Adams had a great career at Robbinsville and a great year this year. That's why he's our athlete of the year in 2024.
Yeah, you gotta like him because he is he's a do it all player. He comes along and I mean, yeah. A couple rough games here or there, but mostly, he's hitting 50% of his passes, and like you say, over 1,300 yards passing, several touchdowns. But no, this is a guy that you want on your team, and definitely a good choice in Bryce Adams. Could you navigate that around and shop it around to some other folks, whether you're looking just purely at quarterbacks like a Brady Grant or a Tate Roberts, or just whoever is filling that bill, Everett Tatham. If as long as he's staying healthy and that sort of thing, I think that you've got some good folks that came along. Jonathan Saylor, Cherokee, I think was a good candidate, but that's just purely looking at some folks like quarterback, flipping the script a little bit and landing on the other side to defense. Very seldom in some of those names do you get to flip that over and see them on the other side. So this is what kind of the definition of Iron Man football. He lines up there with Bryce lines up there with Isaac Collins and Tanner Hedden, and they do a great job across the linebacker posts. So yeah, kudos to Bryce Adams. I mean, he's definitely had a sterling career at Robbinsville.
Yeah, I mean, you look at guys and their stats, and they might compare on one side of the ball, but not on both. What he was able to do from the quarterback position of the defense at linebacker, and from the quarterback position of offense, is really something to see when you take a look at his stats. But you mentioned someone back there in the linebacker corps with him, our newcomer of the year, Isaac Collins, junior linebacker and just utility, do it all, man. Tight end. He played running back a little bit there at the end of the year. Great punter for the Black Knights. He had 12 punts inside the 20, averaged over 40 yards per punt. He was third in the conference in tackles with 112 tackles, 4.5 yards per carry. Isaac Collins, a junior, didn't see a lot of PT last year with how stacked Robbinsville was, but he is going to be their go-to guy next season.
Oh, that's definitely, he'll be in the lineup. He's a good junior. Of course, now you had ahead of him a few that were really burning up the field, had the plays going, but he's next man up, and that's without just he had a really good attitude. He was and again in the short time he's filling the new roles, he does really well. He starts making a good mark, and nothing much more to say. I mean, he's one that had to just answer the call real quickly and did so quite well.
So we've got a new award that we're going to give out this year. Somebody who you talked about, somebody being the heart and soul of their team. Maybe somebody that doesn't fill up the stat sheet, but our Iron Man of the Year award goes to, like I said, somebody that doesn't fill up the stat sheet, just giving 100% every down. Somebody that plays all three phases of the game and is kind of the heartbeat of their team. How just the straw that stirs the drink, whether it be on the sidelines or on the field or in the locker room. And that man this year in 2024, our inaugural Iron Man of the Year is Will Shore, senior running back, defensive back, kind of a guy that got the Bulldogs hyped up and ready to go every Friday night, helped lead them to a Smoky Mountain Conference title. Like I said, he might not have lit up the stat sheet. He was, I think, third on the team in tackles. Not that he didn't put up good numbers, but he meant a lot to this team as a locker room guy. And so Will Shore is our Iron Man of the Year. Like I mentioned, playing all three phases of the game, special teams, offense, defense, out there when he's sick, out there when he's hurt, playing through whatever he can just to make sure that he helps the Bulldogs in any way that he can. But Will Shore was very fun to watch this year.
I totally agree. You basically just said it all right there. I mean, not much more else. But what I will say is that no, Will Shore is not necessarily headline grabbing kind of guy he was last year. I remember we had a neat football game when Will Shore and let's see, I'm trying to remember our specialist last year. He'll kill me once
Will Joyner.
Will Joyner. We had a nice little story about both of those guys last year, but this year, he is really in the background. He's the guy who holds the ball for Jerry Bowie with the field goals and point afters, and he's mostly the fellow who you'll see. He had some really impressive runs and some plays to take you to a certain point to where there's either like a Cameron Clem or a Cadence Leatherwood that punches it right into the end zone, and they did that off the back of Will Shore, or there was an interception, but mostly what's really impressive about Will is that he is the guy who's in the middle of the breaking things down. He's the one to get people fired up, and he's last year had some sickness and an injury, and stayed right there with it all the way through. When I think even when we went to Mount Airy last year, but this year, thank goodness, no sickness until we got to Mountain Heritage, and then got his noggin took a flogging, so he was out for the last part of the football game. But that was it, and you're right. He's kind of the guy who puts the lead in the pencil of the Murphy Bulldogs. But again, mostly you're seeing the Brady Grants, you're seeing the Cameron Clems and the Cadence Leatherwoods, and some of the Ryan Paynes. But in the background, Will Shore is a spirited trooper. So Iron Man, I like that.
Other guys in the background that don't get a lot of shine are our linemen. Our 2024 lineman of the year is Titan T. Stateski, senior offensive defensive lineman for the Black Knights. He had over 70 tackles for Robbinsville. 71 tackles, 12 tackles for loss. Played in 13 of the 14 games, and offensively created a lot of holes for Robbinsville and their patented running game. And defensively, he's a hard matchup for anyone. Titan's been playing both ways for 4 years. He's been a huge asset to this Robbinsville team and their recent success. And that's why he's the lineman of the year. He's a guy that nobody wanted to line up across from. He's a senior who helped Robbinsville be what they are in these last few years. So
I think this is a tough one because you have so many good linemen all across the Smoky Mountain Conference, and I'm just going to mention a few. Starting in Swain, Drew Skaggs, I think Insay Ufert definitely has a good presence there. Of course, when you really think about it, Insay, I believe, has committed to the University of North Carolina. Not for football, but for track and field. But it still showed, and I think a lot of people ran away from NSA, and they ended up getting into the hands of Drew Skaggs down the line. I mean, take anybody from Robbinsville, Kaysen, Quinn, obviously Titan, Dane, Isaac, all the folks that are on the line there, and I think just a few others, like we mentioned, Colton Rose and Gabe Aguilar, and just several folks that you want to look, and of course Murphy has had its fair share. We already mentioned Charlie Graves. You look at Landon Lape, and down the line, but Titan does really good work. Now that I've rounded everything back around, let's go back to Titan. He is a Titan, the way that he plays, and I would not want to have him on the other side of me in the trenches.
So we've got 2 awards left. We've went through our Iron Man of the Year, our Defensive Player of the Year, our lineman of the year, newcomer of the year, athlete of the year. Now let's move on to our offensive player of the year, the guy that made the most impact on the offensive side of the ball. And in the Smoky Mountain Conference, it is almost always going to be a running back. And this year it was Cameron Clem, sophomore running back. He led the conference in rushing, 1,747 rushing yards, led the conference. 28 touchdowns, led the conference. 124.8 yards per game, led the conference. 8 yards per carry, led the conference. When Murphy needed something fast, or when it seemed like Murphy's backs were against the wall and they needed something to break through, they gave it to Cameron Clem, and he made things happen.
Well, one thing when you do your research and you start looking at the numbers across the way, I think the one thing that was just salient with selecting Cameron Clem is you kept saying, led the conference. I mean, in almost every category, and that's impressive. The big thing here is that no, he didn't score every touchdown for Murphy. In fact, there were some nights he had one touchdown, but then there were some nights he had 5 touchdowns. But the one thing that was really impressive, once this Joker starts moving, he burns up the field, and he's impressive to watch. He can juke and he can move, and he gets his yards. And I don't think that necessarily that maybe all the time there's a meter in front of him saying, okay, you've gotten so many yards, whatnot. Cameron Clem just does. He's a good workhorse. He would be an asset for any team. And I know that when you go around talking to any of the other schools in the area, the one thing they'll say is we've got to stop number 5, and it's obviously so. So it's Cameron Clem will take you places, and I think his golden feet are headed for some great places in the next 2 years. Remember, he's just a sophomore.
Yeah, that's what makes it so impressive. Is what he's able to accomplish at such a young age. He's did very well his freshman year. He did, really, really good this year. He's explosive. He got better as the year went on, and that's what you want to see out of a young guy. So we've just got one award left, our overall player of the year. And, looking at things, it was pretty easy to decide once you saw, what someone did on the offensive side of the ball, what someone did on the defensive side of the ball, how well their team did, what they meant to their team. And the 2024 player of the year is linebacker, fullback, Cadence Leatherwood. He made things happen for a Murphy defense that just allowed 16 points per game. He led the conference in tackles. He had 14 tackles for a loss, 148 total tackles. He ran for 552 yards, which was good enough for 8th in the Smoky Mountain Conference. Had 5 touchdowns on offense. He was just a behemoth of a guy on either side of the ball. You like to see him dive around and make a tackle and get up and do his big wolf, throw his head back, wolf scream. Then I loved watching the way he ran the ball out of the backfield. Just a hard-nosed football guy who definitely is deserving of our 2024 Player of the Year.
Well, Cadence Leatherwood is such an impressive young man. He's going to be one that's really sorely missed by the Murphy Bulldog football team, I think, coming up when he graduates in the spring. And a couple reasons why. One, I think his soul attitude is one of the best that you would ever want to have in a player. I asked him one time about scoring touchdowns, and he's like, I don't care. I don't care if I'm the one who takes us from the 1 yard line down to the other 1 yard line, and then the ball goes to somebody else. As long as we score, as long as we win, as long as we accomplish our goals. And then, making the stops. I mean, he's probably, if you hadn't said Will Shore for Iron Man, I think Cadence Leatherwood would have been, the one who had come up right back up in behind. And I think over time, because I watched him practically grow up on this field. He was he seemed like he was shorter and a little heavier, and he's turned into a lean, mean fighting machine. And he goes where you ask him. He's he's the Jonah of the Murphy football team. They said, play linebacker, play here on the line. No, we're going to move you to fullback. We've got a few spots to fill. We want to see some. And this is not something that he hasn't ever done. He played running back when he was coming up through the youth leagues, playing for Murphy back in the day. But again, Cadence Leatherwood, can't say enough about this guy. He's going to be sorely missed, and he's another big fixture for raising the spirits and having good attitude, and also just being just a great player.
Yeah, great player and a great guy. He's always one that, in every interview we did with him, fun guy to talk to, and would always, not just give you the cookie cutter answers, but would tell you exactly what you quote unquote wanted to hear. Cadence was a great guy, and he's it's always, we had Cutler Adams was our player of the year last year. It's tough to not see him play in the Smoky Mountain Conference again. It's going to be tough to see Cadence not play in the Smoky Mountain Conference again. But those are our awards. Our Smoky Mountain Conference team will be posted. Our media Smoky Mountain Conference team will be posted immediately after this goes live. But right now, let's take a look at some of those players. Brandon, some of those guys we mentioned that just, missed out on the awards. Here's our first team, all-conference team. Cameron Clem, Bryce Adams, Santiago. He did a lot for that Cherokee team that ended up finishing tied for second in the conference. Ryan Payne, Darian Ledbetter, Devin Garcia from Cherokee. All those guys were a threat in the passing game. So was Kenyon Nichols. Then you've got your linemen, Landon Lake, Anthony Gooden, Titan T. Stetsky, Colton Rose, Drew Skaggs, Charlie Graves, Will Brown, Jude Pinkerton, Camden Brazil, Insay Ufert, Brody Orton, and linebacker Isaac Collins, Will Roberts, a guy that led Andrews in tackles, defensive back Tanner Hedden, Aiden Williams, Ryan Payne, Shiloh Al from Cherokee, and then specialist Jerry Bowie. Our second team, quarterback Brady Grant, Trey Graves, Eli Aguilar, Michael Money, Corey Stillwell, Shiloh Al, Luke Smith, and then the linemen, Braden Gaither, Brody Orton, Emery Driver, Dane Webster, Charlie Graves, Quinn Jumper, Kason Buchanan, Landon Green, Houston Hornbuckle, a guy from Swain that came on there at the end, John Dominguez, Dawson Devane, Josiah T. Stetsky, Kenyon Nichols, Luke Lovin, Will Shore, Michael Money, James Arch, and specialist Johan Webb. So, like I said, a great year in Smoky Mountain Conference football. That article will be posted immediately after this goes live. So, thanks to everybody for your support this year. We'll be back covering the Smoky Mountain Conference next year. Brandon, anything you want to say before we close out for the final time?
Well, I do. I will say this. Congratulations to Coach Gentry, David Gentry. It was just announced not too long ago. North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame. He's going to be inducted into the 61st class there, and that'll be coming up in the induction ceremony is May 2nd this coming spring. So congratulations to him. I didn't know that there was another Hall of Fame or area where they could honor Coach Gentry, but this was more for the professionals. I mean, there are people like Michael Jordan, James Worthy, just various. There are race car drivers. This one's in a different lens rather than looking just at high school athletes, coaches, patrons of sports. This one's pretty cool. So congratulations to him. Also, it's just been real fun. Thank you to all the Smoky Mountain Conference coaches I got to visit with, and the information you share. Players, again, we really work to try to do our job to provide good information and to give a good shine to the Smoky Mountain Conference in general. Jake, appreciate you in giving the opportunity here to do this week in and week out. It's a bit of work, but it's always enjoyed. And to all the fans and all the people, that click on us, check us out, read our stuff, watch our streaming games, that sort of thing. We do appreciate, or I appreciate it very much. So it keeps me busy and keeps me out of the pool halls on Friday nights.
Yeah, thanks everybody for all of your support. We'll be back next year, like I said, same time, same place, doing the same stuff. Brandon, thanks for all that you do for helping get these kids some coverage. I know you meet with Coach Holt and Coach Watson and some of the other coaches every week and get player interviews and things like that. I know they really appreciate that. So thank you. Thanks everybody for watching. This has been Inside the Smoky Mountain Conference for the final time in 2024.